Welcome to another episode of Behind the Now. Today I get to chat with author and talent agent Nikai Johnson. After studying screenwriting and filmmaking in university, Nikai eventually landed a position at Savage Agency, where he currently oversees voiceover and theatrical work for his clients. As a writer, Nikai transitioned from writing screenplays to writing novels, 3 of which are currently available on Amazon. Listen in to learn about Nikai's own origin story as a writer and his insight into the creative process of writing a novel. Hey, Nikai, thank you so much for doing this with me today. I'm so excited to talk with you, so thanks for coming on here.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Yes, me too. Okay, so you are a talent agent and an author, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Amazing, yeah. Okay, cool. So how did you get into entertainment at all and writing? Like, I guess what came first? What's your pathway been from the beginning? Like, how did you get into this world?
Yeah, I guess, well, when I was really young, 6 or 7, my family got like a family computer, and like I started writing like little short stories on them. And I wrote them in like 24 Comic Sans font. They were like 1 page long. Like they didn't have
One
any
page,
yeah, 1 page.
24.
That was
So
it.
that's like, yeah,
That was the extent
that's
of
so
what I wanted to
cute.
do. They were all like, they were stories that didn't have any character names. It was just always like
Okay.
the hero or the bad
Oh,
guy.
wow. That's actually
So
pretty cool that that's how you thought of it right away. That's like
yeah,
very conceptual. You kind of knew the skeleton of a story. Like,
yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
cool, you know?
I mean, you say that, that's very kind of you. It's definitely like I look back on those short stories, and like, they're cute for like a 6, 7 year old, but it definitely lacked a lot of things. But my mom was always very encouraging, and so was my dad, and so I just started, writing more as I grew up, and always really loved it. Then, I went to Emerson College for screenwriting
Mm.
and film, and I was there for 3 years, and then moved out here to LA.
Mm.
And then it was just applying to 200 or so jobs before like I was able to land my current job at the Savage Agency. And then started as the assistant and became a talent agent from there.
Wow, that is so
Yeah.
cool. So you actually studied film and screenwriting in school?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. But you're writing now, like, it's more novels, right? Or also screenwriting?
No, yeah, really just novels now. I mean, I love screenwriting, always will. I think it's so much fun. But I think I just got tired of having my screenplays just kind of be on a shelf, so to speak, even though they're on my
Ah,
computer desktop.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it just,
You're so
they
funny.
don't go anywhere. And like,
Yeah.
I think that's just the one bummer about screenwriting, is that like most of the things you're never going to see the light of day. And
Mm,
so I mean, there are many reasons, but I think one of the greatest things about novel writing is that like you can publish it even as a self-publisher. You can technically have it quote unquote done, and that's a really
yeah,
nice feeling to be like, I did this thing, whether
yeah.
it's the worst thing in the world or the best thing in the world. It's done. It's out there, and I get to celebrate that.
Yeah, that is amazing. Okay, so that I'm understanding. So what do you actually prefer doing, screenwriting or writing novels?
Writing novels now, yeah. I mean,
Oh,
screenwriting is
wow.
super fun, and it was
Yeah.
definitely my first love, so to speak. Like I wrote in 8th grade. I did this. I got funded by my school to put on this play that I wrote,
Oh, wow.
and so it was like it was super fun. It was a great experience, and like I definitely kept writing and writing feature length screenplays in high school, and then in college, like honing that craft
Yeah.
and making it better. But then it wasn't until after college where the reality of it just kind of set in, of like, oh, like, being in the industry, it's so hard to like, break through. And even
Mm,
established writers have a hard time like getting their own stuff that they want made. You have to really be like the top of the top to do that.
mm.
And I was like, I don't want to wait that long to be able to show my story. So um, I started writing my first novel, Spirits of Sarana, and then that kind of uh, gained my like love for novel writing. And so, from there, I'm just been like, oh, this is actually way more fun for me. I really enjoy it.
Wow. Yeah, I can totally understand that. It's much more, I mean, I don't know. It's like a lot. It's I don't know what I'm saying. Like screenwriting, like a screenplay is more like the skeleton of a story. Almost, it's like more like I don't know. Like you don't have like the obviously like the in depth. Like you don't have like in people's heads and like the same level of descriptions and like all the stuff everyone would know. Like a book versus
Yeah.
a screenplay. So I can see how that's like a fun. How you could prefer that now.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, screenplays take a bunch of people to, come to life. And technically in the book, you only have
Yeah.
to really depend on yourself.
That's
And so,
true.
that's like the nice thing about, a book is that you can kind of like see your vision from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And a screenplay too, it's like not the final, this is what you just said, but that's a big point. Like the final product isn't meant to be something that's read. It's only
Yeah,
meant to be read for like a limited amount of time, enough to get it made,
yeah,
right? But like what
exactly.
you're writing, novels they're meant to be, that's it. Like that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and like, novels are, a way to express yourself. There's also like, I don't know like how many people realize this, but like screenplays, like unless you're doing like an indie film, you're doing like, much more studio films. It's just like a bunch of people are working on it. So it's not
Yeah,
just the writer,
totally.
making the decisions and, being like, this is my vision. It's like, it's very much a studio collaboration where there's multiple people talking about the scripts and, fine tuning it and stuff. Like, unless you are an auteur like Quentin Tarantino or something like that, you don't really have much
Yeah.
say in that. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like creative control in the end product because
yeah.
after pre-production and your work is done, it's like your work is done. And then usually
Yeah.
it just like it can get changed. Even like after it's filmed in the editing room, that changes everything too, like at every
Yeah,
stage. Yeah. It's
exactly.
really yeah, people probably don't always think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a bit about like the books you've written and like what you like to write. What are your stories that you
Yeah,
naturally kind of
I
go
mean,
to?
naturally gravitate towards fantasy.
Hmm.
So that's another reason to not do screenplays is because, to go into a big world of fantasy, you have to create the world and stuff, and that's just really hard to do in a screenplay. So I really I found that the novels you can really build out the world and the
Hmm.
characters and really make it feel fulfilled and so my three books that I currently have out right now, two are YA novels,
Oh, cool.
which are for a young adult for people who don't know. And that's Spirits of Serana, which was my debut novel, and then the sequel, Castles of Serana, just came out yesterday, so I'm very happy about
Oh
that.
my gosh. Okay,
Yeah,
amazing.
so very excited. And they're basically I mean, what all good fantasy is just making all the nerdy fun stuff. Like if we look at Star Wars, like lightsabers, the Force, that's all really fun, nerdy stuff to kind of nerd out about. But it all comes down to what we can relate to. And that's what I think all good fantasy does. And so for the Serana series, it's all about opening up,
Mm,
like showing your emotions and how powerful that is, communication and how that's really important. And so Spirits of Serana follows Jai, who is like the 16-year-old boy who is having trouble opening up, and he's going through this grief and doesn't really know how to process it.
yeah.
And so the biggest thing is him having to he goes on this adventure and stuff, and there's a forest that changes color, and there's laser discs and stuff that
Mm,
all make it fun action and good and good visuals. But at the end of the day, it's about him trying to open up and if he's able to do that or not.
yeah, I love
Um,
that.
yeah,
That's so I love that, like, you're also saying that, like, despite all the real cool effects and all those things and, like, the all of the things that make that genre, at the core of it, there's the universal truth or, like, the human experience of what's going on, no
yeah.
matter how, like, out there, like and that's true, every, like, amazing story has that. That's the thing you can connect to and
Yeah.
like go with the characters,
Yeah,
root for
exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then my adult novels, it's called To Kill the Chosen One. It's a
Mm.
darker fantasy novel. And it's a revenge story. But it takes like the archetype of like the chosen one, who's been a lot of like fantasy or sci-fi concepts, and is basically following the bad guy's perspective and trying to take revenge on the person who wronged him. So it's
Interesting.
kind of got that Monte Cristo inspiration.
All right. Okay. Amazing. And where are these books available right now on Amazon?
Yeah, they're all on
Oh,
Amazon right now.
amazing. Cool.
Yeah,
Okay. Awesome. And then, so like when you get an idea, how do you decide if it's worth pursuing? Because writing a novel is a big investment, obviously,
yeah,
of time and energy. And
yes,
I mean, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So kind of I don't know if you can speak to that. Like, what's your process like? So, yeah, how do you
Yeah.
decide if it's worth pursuing an idea? And then what kind of is your writing process in terms like, do you outline before? To what degree?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, it's a huge process, and even after you publish it, there's, that's only half of it. Um, I would say like, if you're like, I've talked to a lot of people who have either like wrote their own books or want to write their own books. And the biggest thing I can, give advice for is just, uh, like you have to be passionate about whatever the central
Mm.
theme is. You have to relate to it. I mean, like there is definitely truth in like the writing what but you have to feel like your main story is about like Spirits of Toronto is about grief and like having to open up, and that's something that I really relate
Mm.
to. It's the loss of a father figure, which I relate to, and so that was kind of driving the whole book of like, well,
Mm.
I'm always going to have this feeling towards this, so like that's what's going to get me through, writing each chapter, the outline, the marketing of it all, the talking
Yeah,
about it. Like
totally.
it's always there's always going to come back to that passion. Because I find when people who want to write a book just don't have the like central theme, they oftentimes lose it. Like they either write the whole book and then they go like, "What is this even about?" and like they don't want to do it
Yeah,
anymore. They don't
yeah.
want to go through the process of editing and rewriting it. And just as a book, like because it takes so long, you have to, know that in 2 years you're still going to have that passion for that story.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And
Yeah,
it's like also you're kind of speaking to not just a passion on an intellectual level, like, oh, this is a really cool idea, but you're speaking to an emotional like resonance too,
yeah, yeah,
which is important because that's something that you don't have to like that's there. It exists. So it'll
yeah.
like drive you each time when you sit and write.
Exactly. And like you have to find passion even in the small scenes in like chapter 5 where like
Mhm.
you're not doing the climax, you're not, you're meeting some of the characters, and
Mm.
or you're just having kind of more of like a sit down scene that doesn't really mean much right now, but it's gonna,
Yeah.
it reinforces what you're trying to say. You still have to have passion in that scene because people will feel if you don't.
Mhm.
And so if you're just trying to rush to get to the climax of the huge battle or whatnot, that's just not. It's not going to feel like it's like that. The climax doesn't feel like it's going to pay off what has already come before.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And sometimes, I mean, everyone has had experiences where they're reading and it just gets like lost in, I don't know, like I wonder if it's like, I kind of am starting, I don't know. I was thinking like, I wonder if the writer at that point also kind of was just kind of like spit out exposition or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I
in
mean, there's
some ways.
definitely
And
like
it like, yeah. And it like
definitely like
translates.
in a first draft that like should be the thing of like just spit
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
out, just get it out on paper, because even if it's bad, like you can like it's there, and that's the other big thing is like it's so much easier to go in and edit something and change it up than it is to like write from scratch. And so like
Mm.
so I'm always trying to tell people like the best thing about writing a book is just vomit words onto a page and then go back and fix it up later.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And that's for screenwriting too and every
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So what is so actually how long does it normally take each book sort of? I
Yeah,
guess
it's so
from
different. I mean, my
yeah.
debut novel, Spirits, was definitely like a longer process of just learning how to, one,
Mm,
write a book, um, you know, change things in the world that I wasn't super confident in. So it definitely, I think from like start to finish, that took about 2.5 years,
mm,
um, from like concept to like finished product.
okay.
But then like Kill the Chosen One and Castles was definitely like a year to a year and a half.
Okay.
So like, always start with like the outline, go through the characters, look what they're kind of do like little arcs, like paragraphs or little arcs of like what kind of their journey is, what like role they have in the story, how are they going to shape the plot. And then actually go down to each chapter and be like, this is what this chapter is
Mm,
going to be mostly about. But I try not to be like so, like hung up
too
on details,
detail oriented.
because
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think it's like when you're writing it, part of writing is also figuring out how your characters feel in the moment. And that might be different once you get to the actual writing from what your outline was.
Mm,
And so, like, it's making sure that you're, as long as everything comes back to your central theme that you're trying to convey. I think that's just your kind of guiding light, no matter what choice
mm.
whether you write exactly how your outline was or if you kind of go off track and come back.
Yeah, so I've experienced that like when writing screenplays. So say I have an outline and it's like da 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 the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then you're actually writing and you get to a certain point and you feel yourself, if this is what you're speaking to. So correct me if this isn't even what you meant. But so I'll have an outline and then I'll be at that point writing it. And my impulse or my instinct would be to go like in another direction. That's not really what was in the outline. So would you go in that direction or like follow it or follow that or I don't know, is it like important to stick to your outline? It
Yeah.
sounds dumb, probably
I mean,
not,
I
I
think it
guess.
it definitely
Probably
depends. Like,
yeah.
if you're like gonna kill a character off, then like you're like, well, are they coming back in like 5 chapters or so? Because if so, that's
Yeah.
bad. Or
Definitely
that's a
yeah.
major change that you have to kind of figure out. Well, am I making this change, and how am I going to fix
Yeah.
the outline later? Or is it a thing where you're going to be like, no, I can't kill this character off because it ruins too much. So I need to either knock them unconscious instead, or whatever it is
Yeah,
to make
yeah.
you feel like, all right, like let's get to the point that I wanted to get across by killing this character. But I can't actually do that. So how do I get around it?
Right. So, like
Um,
yeah, so kind
so
of
it
like
just
explore
depends.
your yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's probably worth knowing why you're not wanting to stick to the outline, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
why yeah, like where
Yeah,
you're wanting like where it's feeling like going, yeah.
yeah. You never know how your story's going to change, and you as yourself as a person change too. So
Yeah,
like
that's yeah.
your central idea might be like, maybe you've gone through a breakup and
Mm.
you're just like, I hate love and everything about it. And like you write a story about that, and then you find a relationship when you're in the climax, and you're like, actually love is actually pretty great. So maybe I should like, that type of thing of like,
Yeah,
you never know
totally.
how your like real life is going to also influence
Definitely. And
that
it
process.
informs, and I think in everything creative, your real life informs what you're doing in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you writing
Um,
right now?
sorry?
What are you writing right now?
So I was referring to, yeah, screenwriting. So a
Nice.
pilot and a feature before, but they're both like in the process.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. Um, so like when you transitioned from screenwriting to novels, did you do any kind of like formal training or did you or like self-taught or like how did you even know how to approach writing a novel?
Yeah, I mean, I got really back into reading. That was the biggest thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'd kind of taken a break after school to like just not read anything. And honestly, reading is like definitely the best teacher
Yeah.
for writing a novel. Just word choices, structure, all of
Yeah.
that. We all have good, I think, most of the time, good story inclinations of like how
Yeah.
we understand story structure. But the actual, like, how do I phrase this or how do I describe this? Like, Just reading a bunch of different books really helps to get like a feel of like how different writers communicate and describe their own like in their worlds and their characters, and then you can kind of like take inspiration from that and go like, okay, this is how like I'm going to do it differently. This is how I'm going to kind of relate to this particular writer and how they did stuff, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I think that's such brilliant advice to remember because sometimes like I sometimes forget that, for instance, and I find that the second often like when you have like writer's block, but even on a bigger picture than that, like creativity block, like for anything you're doing, you know what I mean? For like anything where you're coming up with ideas or content or stories or anything. I find that like I kind of think creatively you need a certain amount of like input and then you're doing the output, right? Like the
Yeah.
creative output. But I find like if I have writer's block, I'm just using that term for like for writing, but actually like really like all encompassing. But I find sometimes that like when I think about it, I'll be like, oh, I haven't been having as much like creative input, which is like reading,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
watching something, like maybe it could be anything, like even doing life or like whatever. And then the second you like bring something new and you do that, you'll realize it'll generate, like it'll get it moving again. So you can
Right.
create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And I think, like you were mentioning, I think even just going outside and like getting a change of
Yeah.
environment, change of scenery,
Yeah.
meeting someone new, like also can do that too. And so like, I think it just, we think of like writer's block of just like sitting on the couch and like
Yeah.
not moving until we figure out why, like how to get past this problem. And it's like, no, it's like there's actually tons of way to get around that and to
Yeah.
kind of break through.
Yeah, totally. And also like simply going for a walk, like you said, that's great. Like just
Yeah.
moving or like something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You never know if you meet a dog on the street and you're like, oh, that's,
Totally. Or
like,
you see
that kind of
someone
conversation with
and
the owner is, what's going to, get you to like write the scene that you've been stuck on.
yeah, I think that's such a cool thing. Or like you're like even in traffic and suddenly you're like, "Oh, I get it." I feel like it's like
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
second your brain can like relax or like get you distracted, which is kind of like a form of
Right. Yeah.
relax in a way. It's like
Yeah.
that inspiration can come in, which is
Right.
so
Exactly. I
crazy.
mean, like, it all comes down to character anyway. So,
Yeah.
the old like everyone making their own decisions throughout the day, even if like you said, sitting in traffic and someone cuts you off, like you can be like, oh, that that's a decision someone made, and that might be the thing that helps you, in your own story of like, oh,
Yeah.
that was a mean thing to do.
Yeah, no, totally. I find that I find that I even forget that, and then I'm like, "Oh, I need to, like, do something," And then it's like even if it's something stupid, and then it's like, "Oh, now it's working."
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's such a cool reminder.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, let's transition a bit
yeah,
to, so you're an agent at an agency.
yeah,
You did explain, that you went to film school and in screenwriting, and then
yeah,
so you basically applied to, like, hundreds of jobs, and then you got this.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's I feel like every time that I talk to someone in this industry, I think what people always kind of omit is how like they kind of were lucky.
Mm.
And I think that applies to me for sure. Like this job of like I was just applying to everything under the sun because I just wanted to get entertainment.
Yeah.
And I just was kind of lucky that I got pulled in this interview, and then I got the job, and and then I've been working with really good people, and so I've stayed. And there's that element of like, oh, I don't take it for granted that like I got like very lucky to be where I am.
Yeah. And it's so cool that but also, like, it's also cool for people to hear that it's not like you knew it's like you actually just applied online to a bunch, right?
Yeah,
And then this one landed. So that's really good because people, like I know looking for jobs and stuff, it's
yeah.
sometimes feels like it's just, like, no one it's just going into an abyss, but it's not true, like, people are looking, something could land, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you never know what's gonna connect with somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly because I didn't really have a resume. Like I worked like like Jamba Juice was my first job back in high
Wow.
school.
Yeah.
I worked delivery food delivery service like in Seattle for a minute. I interned at a production company, but that was really it. That was my
Mm.
resume. I didn't really have very much. I guess I started to bartend a little before I got this job, so there was that too. But like,
Okay. Yeah.
not it wasn't like there
Not, like,
wasn't like a
related except for the internship, I
yeah,
guess,
exactly. There
and your
wasn't
degree.
like a slam dunk, like, this is why I should get this
Yeah.
job. It really was like, for some reason, like, just my resume resonated with the assistant at that time.
Mm.
And then my bosses were like, sure, we'll take an interview. And that is sometimes, all it takes is just like all right, like,
Yeah,
this person
meeting
looks like,
someone. Yeah.
we'll take a chance on them, and then, you get at least
Yeah.
the opportunity and go from there.
That's, so awesome, and that was as an assistant originally.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I'm,
cool.
now I'm talent agent, and I do the theatrical side of things, and oversee the voiceover department.
Okay, that's incredible. So
Yeah.
what's the process like from, I mean, I know a lot like assistants, like what's the process like of transitioning from assistant to agent? Like obviously, I mean, how did it work? Like how long have you been there for?
I've been there coming up on 6 years now,
Oh, okay. So there, yeah,
and
yeah.
I think it was just like it wasn't like a for me personally. It wasn't like a definitive like today this is your title change.
Like,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
like just a kind of a slow process of giving me more responsibility. And
Mm,
so like I started with just like rolling calls, scheduling, doing all the miscellaneous work that assistants usually do, and then I started getting more voiceover stuff, and my boss put me in charge of that more often, and she started like not doing it, and so and then all of a sudden I was just kind of taking over, and then one day I was like, do I even need to copy you anymore? And she's like, no, no, you're the voiceover agent, you do your thing.
mm,
And like that was it.
yeah,
And then like I assisted on the theatrical side for so long at that point that I'm just also part of that team, and now I'm a theatrical agent as well.
yeah. Oh, it's so incredible. It's awesome. How
Yeah.
many clients do you kind of have right now?
I mean, we probably have around like 200 to 300.
Oh, okay. At the company.
Yeah, at the company.
Yeah, not just you for
No,
2. Yeah,
no,
yeah, okay.
our agency works on a like we're a team basis, so we don't have
Oh,
like
okay,
individual.
cool.
Like we have like I will only submit on like I might have some like voiceover specific clients that only I have because they're only voiceover,
Okay.
and then one of my colleagues deals with theater, and one of my other colleagues is commercials, and I don't do anything with theater or commercials.
Mm,
And so they have some specific clients that only are commercial or theater
okay,
clients.
cool.
But anything in the theatrical realm, like most of them, except for the commercial agent, all of us kind of just share, and we all help and pitch and,
Yeah.
coordinate and all that good stuff.
Okay, incredible. So, you just mentioned pitching. What's kind of the pitching process like normally? So I know, so you guys probably have, like, breakdowns, casting networks, all those
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
and you submit. Yeah.
Casting networks and Casting Frontier are usually commercial based. There
Okay.
haven't been. There's definitely like a shift at one point that like from when Casting Networks was like
Yeah.
LA casting,
Yeah.
like they kind of took a lot of the theatrical stuff off of that and then moved it over back down to breakdowns slash actors access. So primarily that's what we use. Voiceover wise, a lot of the casting offices just reach directly out with their breakdowns.
Mm,
Voiceovers work a little differently. So it's a lot of like voiceover wise, like you send the materials out as like an audition. They send the voice back, and then we take their voice, and that's our pitch. Is like here's their voice. Doesn't match with what you're looking for. Go from
okay.
there. Theatrical side is on Actors Access. We submit your headshot, your resume, any kind of relative like related clips that we need that we think matches the role, and then depending on it, we'll send a small um, like pitch and be like, this person was on this show, this show, this show, and like
Mm,
to kind of get it out front and center. Some people have like what's called an EPK, which kind of puts all their stuff onto one link. And then we sometimes will send that out if it's like an offer only type of situation.
Okay, awesome. So, beyond, I mean, I know it's an agency. So, beyond submitting online, do you normally do like email pitches, phone pitches, or like does it depend or like,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed because of COVID. Casting
mm.
offices don't usually have casting offices anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been working from home so much. So, like, we do submit on phone calls. Like, we do call the casting directors
Yeah,
and we do
yeah.
talk to them and be like, what about this person for this role type of thing.
Mm.
But usually it always comes back down to email or online through Active
Yeah.
Access, just because the casting directors are also not working from home and their associates are working from home as well. So it's kind of like they need everything in one
Yeah,
like
that makes
place.
sense. And also then it's like a visual thing too, that they just like
Yeah.
have it and they can see.
Yeah, it's also good. I mean, headshots are the calling card for every actor, as you well know. And so, like,
Yeah.
so it's we want them to be able to see that, so they can take, yeah, like you said, like have a visual of like, can I imagine this person in this role?
Right. Right away. They probably in like a few seconds are like, yes or no, in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some casting directors be bluntly honest about some things, and it's like, okay, all right, well, that's I guess what your decision is.
Yeah. Do you give that feedback ever to the clients or no?
I mean, we'll always, if it's like a pre-read, we never really are able to get feedback because
Yeah, yeah.
they're
Yeah.
seeing so many people at that point. If someone gets like a callback or definitely like in the mix, like a pen in, we definitely will always get, feedback. But the
Mm.
casting directors are always going to be, somewhat vague. They're never going to be
Yeah.
like, this person was too short. Like, like it's always going to be like, we're going in a different direction right
Yeah, so it doesn't
now.
really it's not that meaningful.
Like,
Yeah.
because they're also like nice people. They're not
Yeah, of
like
course. Yeah.
there's like like they're also like we like these actors. Like casting directors aren't like, I think there's this reputation that they're just like these mean people. But
No,
like no,
yeah.
most of them are actually really kind and sweet.
Yeah, definitely.
And so they're never like wanting to give bad news. They're
Yeah,
always
yeah.
like so excited when like you book it. They're like, we get to have this call. This is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're always just like, very polite and saying it's going to go in a different direction. Usually,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
and they usually just have like, again, like we always try to tell our clients, like, book the room, not the job. That's
Yeah.
the most important thing in the world is like, just if you make a fan of the casting office, they will bring you back. There's a variety of reasons why you might not have gotten the job. Like I said, you might be too short, too tall. Uh, you might just be slightly too old. If you're pairing with a family, might not be the
Yeah,
right
not looking
ethnicity
like
for the
them,
people
right.
who are already cast. They might change the role entirely.
They might
It's
cut the role entirely.
Yeah, exactly. They've done that plenty
Yeah.
of times. So like it's there's so many reasons that rarely come down to are you talented or not.
Mm.
And so as long as you are, in class, working on your craft, enjoying this process, you will get there no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, I love that. You were reminding me, do you know Friends at all?
I love Friends, yeah.
And Phoebe is like Joey's manager or whatever for like a little bit. She starts
Yes,
making
yeah,
up the reasons he didn't. He's like, you have to tell me the feedback. It helps me, whatever. And she's like,
yeah.
oh, okay, okay. And then she like starts making up the feedback, and it's
Yeah,
horrible. Like not human enough. Okay,
yeah,
so we're doing that. I
yeah.
don't know why it reminded me of that.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's always
So
funny to watch
funny.
Friends because Estelle, his
Yeah.
agent, it just makes me laugh every time because, like,
Yeah.
it's obviously like an interpretation of an agent,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is like so funny that there are some things that I'm like, oh, I do see that. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. They definitely knew exactly who they were pulling from and some. Yeah.
Yeah, right? You can feel, like, the specificity in that role that it's,
Hmm.
like, a real person. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have clients that you've seen become or, like, are there clients where, yet that you've seen really, like, start from very developmental to like booking a lot of stuff? Like you see their career really go from like here to like another level?
Yeah, and that's always
That must be
amazing.
so
Like
exciting. Yeah.
the greatest thing is like, we celebrate everything. We celebrate the small co-stars to the
Yeah.
series regs, the feature films. Like,
Yeah.
it's like once you are in the door and you get a job, like it gets easier to start booking and get
Yeah. So
auditions and
interesting, huh?
everything.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful, especially when you're working with like a kid who just has this like, like this very just huge desire to want to be an actor and like want to be on screen, and they get like a small role. It brightens up their whole day. And then like as they
Mm.
get older, they start booking bigger things and like getting
Yeah.
more responsibility. And so we've seen that, countless times of just, and some people who have started from nothing and have like no experience. And, like we had one guy who he had never booked a role at all. He had barely gotten any auditions. And then
Yeah.
because he was a basketball player and really tall, he just fit this one role. He got an audition and he rose through it and booked the job. And he
Damn,
was a
yeah.
series reg on that show.
Oh my
And so
gosh. Wait,
that's like,
that's so cool.
yeah. And like we just, everyone's different. Everyone has a different journey, but like
Yeah. So yeah.
you just never know when it's gonna happen. But like
Yeah.
it's like I said earlier, like as long as you love this process,
Yeah.
like you will make it. Like
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's just also like you have to put faith in your team that they're pitching for you
Yeah.
and submitting you and stuff, and communicate with them. And then like when you get that audition, even if it's a small co-star, you put your all into it. Make
Yeah.
sure you get your tape in on time. Because that helps so much.
Yeah. Oh man, I really love hearing this. It's so cool. Cause it's and it yeah, because like absolutely just loving it. Cause if you love it, that I think propels all of it because it's just like it's
Yeah.
not really comparable to like something else, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also hearing about that client is also really amazing just because there's like you'll hear ideas sometimes of like a narrative of like, oh, it's like after you book this little one and then this bigger one, like
Mhm.
a process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which I think is true for many whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's good to also know that there's literally no way. Like anything could happen anytime, you
Yeah.
know? So, which is
Exactly. Yeah.
cool. That's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the best and worst thing about this industry is that there's no path in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
like,
That's it.
it's not like you go to like to be a lawyer. There's a
Yes.
very like
That's
straight path that you have to take if you
yeah.
want to be a lawyer, and like this path, where if you're any involved in anything of the creative process, you're going to be kind of snaking your way, and then sometimes you might get lucky, like I mentioned earlier, just like right time, right place, and then
Yeah.
you end up, going straight line like to it, and then all of a sudden have a big break, and then you things become a lot more easier and more defined of where to go next after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh, I love it. And it's funny because it is like industry wide. It's not just creative like creatives, um, it's not just like not a linear path, but even on the other side, like for agencies, for executives, it's
Yeah.
all like that's how kind of like the nature of it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many people who work in this industry who are not on the actor or creative side at all, and like they're
Yeah.
just like, well, what do I do next once I'm done being an assistant? Like there's no like, there's not always like a clear jump, and so you kind of
Yeah.
have to just make your connections, network, and then like go like and then like a job might open up to be like, actually you should apply to this, and I can give you a
Yeah.
recommendation, and then like then you're there, and you're like, okay, cool, I'm here, and you can be there for a little bit, but then if you're deciding you want to even move up further, like you got to figure out, snake your way again, and like figure out what's the next move, and how long is it going to take to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes like kind of blind faith in ways, you know? Like you
Yeah,
have to just keep going, following like what you feel
exactly.
and like doing all the stuff, but also just being like, you can't like, because the second you worry, like it's so easy to do that, you know? So like,
I mean, it's really hard to like, when you're, I don't know, like at night, like you're like home from work and things are settled down. You're like, what am I doing with my life?
when things when you're like alone in your
Yeah.
room. I know exactly though.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to like, especially like I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't
Yeah.
know, like growing up, I went to a school that was very like my middle school and high school were the same school, and like they were very like math and science based,
Yeah.
very small too. Like my grade was like 76 people who graduated.
Yeah. Actually, I
So
also went to a tiny high school, a
oh
small
nice.
one.
Yeah. So then you kind
Yeah.
of feeling like everyone kind of knows everyone. And like
Yeah. Yeah.
for my school, it was definitely like most of the time it was a question of like it wasn't a question of are you going to an Ivy League college? It was like, which Ivy League
Oh,
college are you going
wow.
to?
Yeah. Okay.
And then,
Yeah. Yeah.
like me in the corner being like, I want to be a writer, creative person. Like, it didn't really fit. And like,
Yeah.
I could feel the parents and even the teachers kind of like looking down upon it because
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
it's
Yeah.
not
That's
really like,
terrible. I have
it's,
such opinions on this. Yeah.
I would love to hear them,
Yeah,
please.
no, like just when like the education system in general and like when like that hierarchy at all, you know what I mean? Yeah, I just think it's tailored to a very it's tailored to like a pretty specific type of student. And it's not that obviously like if you're outside of that type, there's nothing wrong with you. So but kids are, you know what I mean? Sometimes they feel that there is or like so yeah, I mean I can talk that's like a whole other
No,
podcast.
no, I
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
agree. I mean, it's tough to like keep yourself going and want
Yeah,
to do this
yeah.
when there's so much outside pressure to not.
Mm.
And like you have to be your own hype person, and that's
Yeah.
incredibly difficult to be like, no, like I'm trying to be an actor, or I'm trying to be a writer, or I'm trying to be an agent, or whatever like the case is. It's like you have to be like this is what I like, this is what I do, this is who I am, and I'm proud of that, and like but like it's hard because like not everyone sees it that way, and so you kind of
Yeah.
have
But
to,
you have to start to like I feel like you at least like you start to learn that not everyone has to see it that way. Like it has to be some like like you have to decide how you're going to see like yourself and everything and that has to be enough, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, and
But definitely like you're speaking of like yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
understand.
It's a tough business, but there's a reason why so many people gravitate towards this is because storytelling is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it's obviously I know we're not we're making movies or writing books at the end of the day, and that's not saving lives or anything like that. But it's important because that's how we connect with people. It's how we uh, like relate and how feel seen in so many ways. How we spend our time, like so I really feel like entertainment is just it's so important that like we really need to give more encouragement to people who are
Mm.
wanting to do this.
Yeah, because it is. It's like very impactful, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, this podcast is called Behind the Now, but I
right.
always like to ask, like, how do you be the now? And you've spoken about this already a little bit, but like up to your interpretation. So yeah, how do you be the now?
Um, I really think it's just one step at a time. Like I
Mm,
think
yeah.
I'm one of those people who I like to plan like 5, 10 steps in advance, and COVID was like a good reminder that that's not possible. That like
Yeah. So true.
whether it's your personal life or the world, throwing a wrench in your plans, like trying to plan like 5 years out is just impossible. Like I hate that question like in job interviews or anything like that. We're like, where do you
Mm,
see yourself in 5 years? I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. I got tomorrow planned and that's about it somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think it's just important to take one step at a time. Know that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm,
And just keep that mindset because eventually, like, you're gonna find yourself like at mile 16, and you're gonna be like, "Wow, like how far I've come! Like I still have 10 more miles to go, but
yeah.
I've made so much progress. Whether that's just emotionally or physically, and that's really just that's just as important as getting to the end."
Yeah, I love that so much. That's so true. And I think also when things are like in those moments when things are like overwhelming or anything, um, to just come back to what you just said, like take one step at a time. So just like, okay, what's one step? Like literally, what is the next, like from here? Not
Yeah.
from where I thought I would be or like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because then it's just you get down on yourself of like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm
which
not
isn't
right.
productive.
Exactly. Yeah. You
Yeah,
have to pat yourself on the back and be like, even if it's just like I wrote a paragraph today or I
yeah.
memorized a couple of the lines of an audition today. Like that's still something. It's still moving forward.
Yeah, totally. So where can our listeners connect with you or find you? Your books are available on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. So you connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram is Nikai J.
Okay.
That's Nikai J. And then my website's wordsofafeatherpress.com. You can find more information about the books all there and more about me if you're interested. Yeah. And then Amazon as well for my books to buy.
Okay, perfect. I love that website title. That's so pretty.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's my company's name, like for my
Okay.
writing. So Words of a
Okay,
Feather.
amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I've loved talking to you.
Yeah. Same here. Thank you for bringing me on.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I'm your host, Jenna Malatsky, and this episode was edited by Jacob Mammen. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at jenna.malatsky and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Behind the Now with Jenna Malatsky.